Now, let's talk about the different zones that we have in the supply curve. So we do have a Keynesian zone, an intermediate zone, and a neoclassical zone. With the Keynesian zone, what is happening here is that this is the portion of the supply curve where GDP is far below potential and the SRAS is flat. So if the aggregate demand curve is in this portion here and the equilibrium of GDP is far below the potential GDP. So usually what's happening here in this region, so we have flat and then up. If you are here and you were to increase GDP, you can increase the output. You can make more stuff and prices stay the same. This is because your economy is in a recession. Like you have very low employment, so you've got very high unemployment. So you have a lot of people not working, you have a lot of unused resources. So basically, if you just started using some of those resources, it's not going to cost you much money to start using them. If you started to hire more people, labor is pretty cheap because everybody wants a job. They'll take low wages. So since the wages are low, then the price level is going to be low as well. So cyclical unemployment is very high here. Inflation price pressures are not much to be worried about because you have just so many resources not being used. You can start using them and it's not going to cost you extra money. When like you're starting to run out of things, like if we had a shortage on gas, we would have an increase in prices. But since we are not using gas, we just have a surplus of it and we started using a little bit of it, we're going to be good. There's no issue with an increase in price in the Keynesian zone. The productive capabilities of the economy are unused, so that's where I'm like, we have high unemployment and we have a lot of unused resources. So increasing output from this low level does put a little pressure on input cost and has minimal impact on the overall price level. So in the Keynesian zone, it's flat. So if you were to increase GDP from here to here, there would be no changes in the price level, but you could increase output. So output could go up and price level is going to remain relatively the same. Okay. Now the neoclassical zone is going to be the portion where the SRAS is at that potential GDP, where you are kind of at your maximum that you're able to do. So the only thing left to do is just go straight up. Now the reason it's straight up is because you have no more resources. Like you've used all your oil and you've used all your gas, you've used all your labor. There is absolutely no way you can make more stuff. You have reached your productive capabilities. You cannot do anything more. So that's why it's only going straight up. Okay. The only thing left to do at that point is like, hey, like we're done making stuff. If you want us to try and make more, we can't. The only thing we can do now is just increase prices. So just have more inflation. So if the aggregate demand crosses a portion of the SRAS into the neoclassical zone, the equilibrium is basically at that potential GDP. You're in this inflationary gap. So cyclical unemployment is low or it's at zero. Structural unemployment may remain an issue. Basically, you could, start replacing people. The only way to increase the size of real GDP is to shift the supply curve to the right. So if you wanted to make more things, you need to find a way to increase the supply. Increases in the aggregate demand will create pressures on the price level. So as we saw here, where we increase the aggregate demand in the green, in the steep portion, this will put price level higher. Okay. If the economy grows and approaches the productive capacity, producers cannot find any unemployed inputs. Basically, you are running out of oil to make more stuff. You're at your productive capabilities. Okay. So the neoclassical zone is this vertical part, right, where you are at your productive capabilities. The last one is the intermediate zone. So this is where most of the economy is hanging out. It's in this upward portion here, where you are kind of below your potential. So you still want to grow your economy, but you're not in the Keynesian zone. So you're not in the flat portion, and you're not in the neoclassical on the vertical region. So you are approaching full employment. Available resources are becoming more difficult to find. Like, you had a lot of oil, but now you're starting to use more of it. So now, because you're starting to use more of it, now we are increasing the price of that oil. So we're going to have rising input cost. So therefore, this is going to increase the price of things, which does create a profit incentive because prices are higher. Higher prices, you want to supply more stuff. A shift to the right will increase output closer to potential GDP, which will reduce unemployment, because if output is going up, you need more people. And since you need more workers, your unemployment is going to go down. However, because of a higher price level, this would put more inflation. If we have a shift to the left, then output's going to go down, and you need less people working, less workers, and because of that, unemployment's going to go up. But this will decrease the level of prices. So on the intermediate zone here, which is this region here, if you were to increase the aggregate demand in this region, you would see higher prices and higher output in this intermediate zone. So the main things I want you to know is in the intermediate zone, this is where we're starting to increase. The Keynesian zone is where we're horizontal, and the neoclassical is where we're on the vertical. The neoclassical is basically saying, like, hey, you're generally going to be hanging out in this region here. Okay. So that is the end of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. In the next chapter, we will talk more about the economy and how it can shift. Okay. I'll see you there.